All right, so I was on TikTok the other day and I came across an interview with Jack Black where he was on Amy Poehler's podcast, Good Hang with Amy Poehler, and he was talking about how he found himself only listening to podcasts, which is honestly a big issue nowadays with a lot of musicians. They're so focused on listening to podcasts and listening to how to be a better musician that they're not actually listening to music anymore. And so Jack Black talks about how in order to get himself back into music, he started doing something called Chrono-Marathons. So I'll let him explain it.
One thing, I realized I stopped listening to music. I was only listening to podcasts and audiobooks, and I was like, I gotta get music back in my life, stat. And so I did this thing called Chrono-Marathons, where you pick a band that you love, and then you've never done this before to that band. So you start at the very first album and you go chronologically through their whole catalog. It's a great way to get in the nooks and crannies. And there's probably some bonus tracks that you never listened to. Listen to all of it, even the songs, because then you find these. It's just an interesting way to hear music. I had never done it before, and I swear by it. All these great, musicians and people that you're like, I bet you there's some songs that I've never even heard that they wrote.
And you go in complete order.
I've heard all of them now. And I like to do a little star on the ones that are my extra specials. And the most fun part is going, oh, this album is when they hit their stride. And you go, they got this window here. There's usually like a 4 or 5 year window where their best went down. Mm-hmm. Why? Why then? And it's also like, oh yeah, I love this band in this window. 1978, Steely Dan, But anyway.
Oh, love that. That's amazing.
That's so fun.
Now, I have to say this made me laugh because I have been doing this for years. I first started doing it when I realized that everyone was talking about how amazing the Beatles were. And while I understood that they had their hits and things like that, I realized that I had never actually really sat down and dived into the Beatles' discography. So I started with Please Please Me and went all the way through up to Let It Be. And it was eye-opening to say the least. Like Jack Black says, I learned very quickly which songs I loved, which songs I had never heard before that were better than any hit that I'd heard in the past 10 years. And I found the songs that I thought were really dumb. I found that Magical Mystery Tour is my least favorite Beatles album. And honestly, I think it's a little overrated. And that was really fun for me because I all of a sudden was able to form my own opinions based on what I was listening to. And even now I listen to the Beatles discography like once a year and just go through it and just remind myself of their songwriting and all of this stuff. And I found that I loved them because I had listened to them and not because someone told me that they were amazing. Now, the reason that this is so cool is because we find ourselves going on a journey with the Beatles, right? We find ourselves listening to them all in one room and doing what they do in bars and clubs. And then we see them grow. We see them get their notoriety. We see them go to India and we hear them change and grow as artists. And like Jack Black says, they find their stride and it's beautiful, right? And in addition to that, what's really cool about the Beatles specifically is that you can actually hear recording technology change, right? You go from those first records where the drums and guitar are panned to one side and the bass and vocals are on the other side. And, it's very rudimentary as far as recording technology is concerned. And then we get the advent of multi-tracking and being able to add all these cool things and the orchestra. And we really not only gain an appreciation for the Beatles, but we also gain an appreciation for recording technology and really what has happened. And because of this, I recommend doing this with every artist that you want to appreciate on your own, right? I know Michael Jackson is great. I've listened to the hits. I know that the studio musicians were insane. I know that Quincy Jones is one of the greatest producers of all time. I get that. But I didn't really appreciate it and feel it and become inspired by it until I went through and listened to all of those records that were just Michael. I also did it with the Jackson 5 and the Jacksons and all that stuff, right? But starting with the albums from when he was a little kid that I didn't even know existed. His first album was called Ben, and I had never heard it before. And it was in 1972, I think, that was released. And then I knew about Off the Wall. I knew that came out in 1979 and had some of the craziest horn lines you've ever heard and was just incredible. And then you watch him grow as an artist, hit that notoriety, hit that stride, release Bad and Thriller, and then go all the way to 2014 with his last record. And you get to see and hear this guy just become Michael Jackson. It's incredible. Now, I realize that this is a little ridiculous. Have you guys ever tried just listening to albums, right? But in this world that we live in with streaming and the accessibility to music being unparalleled in human history, I think it's an important concept to talk about because we're forgetting about the album. If you talk to labels and you talk to streaming executives and you talk to people who are in the know about the music business, they say that the album is dying and that singles are the way to go and you need to put a single out. You need to keep putting a single out. But I have to say that I disagree. I think that albums will never die. And the reason why is because it's about human connection. The album at its core is a snapshot of a season of a person's life. And that's the beauty of it all, is that we get to connect with an artist and to feel understood and to feel like we're not alone. Humans are complex creatures who crave connection. An album is a complex format. It can be all angry, it can be all sad, because sometimes that's what the seasons of our lives are like. It can be incredibly chaotic and we can have highs and lows, and it can tell the story of someone who is literally just trying to live life. And that's the beauty of the album. That's why we need to keep doing things like this, because it will encourage other artists to release albums instead of just single after single after single after single, chasing those streaming numbers and trying to get their 0.02 of a penny. In short, the album is a beautiful thing that will never die. And listening to it as a Chrono-Marathon, as Jack Black put it, is a way to connect even deeper with an artist and to feel and understand them as a person and to be able to just watch someone grow, which is honestly really fun and one of the main reasons why music is here. It's about growth. It's about connection. It's about understanding and someone else putting into words the feelings that you can't. Hope that helps. Let me know what your favorite Chrono-Marathon was. Also, I'd love to hear your experience of what it was like with artists that I wasn't alive for. You know, I was born in 1994, so I wasn't around to experience the beginning of the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Led Zeppelin, you know, all of these incredible heavy-hitting bands. But I do know what it was like to listen to my favorite artists and wait for their record and then wait for the next one and then just keep consuming. Let me know what that was like if you were around back then. Anyway, you guys are great. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. If you're returning, thank you so much for being a part of the channel. My name is Mac Wright. Go make someone else's day better. We'll see you around.